Like I really embarrassed to go to
She said that was different.
Because there's different types of students.
Oh my gosh. How are your kids
So
doing?
they're all different.
Yeah, they're like growing up. I can't believe it. I see them online. I'm like, yeah.
But that's the only taking the risk for them to and that's the
Right. Right.
Window.
Right.
That's what it has to do with.
Right.
But I don't know what
Yeah.
For my next time.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Right, of course, because mom. Do they like Lexington schools? I've heard great things. Yeah.
There's a deity in the window, a specific deity of what that student stands for.
What you said that day.
But I thought you guys were just right.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
I think so.
See, they're all, every single, the building students. They're doing it like this. They're all doing something different. There's something different, and I don't know the reason.
It's really true.
So they're
We live right next to one of the high schools. 7 in the morning. Some of these kids are there at 6 in the morning. Like they're all like, or honors. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's so cool. We're still on Friday.
That's right. I wish I had done that. I had been doing Friday when I switched.
Maybe Brad.
I could do the work.
Yeah.
It was like so much more pressure.
Might be Brad. Usually he brought in the app because this is I think those are the other
The college I was going to. They don't even have like oh wow.
You can do it first. Yeah.
There's also
because it's right after lunch, so it's not the greatest time to have a long meditation session. Is just to have a short meditation session. And then while we're meditating, we start this over again.
See?
Okay, yeah, so since meditating after lunch is not the optimum time, I thought that we would have a discussion. I have a specific way of doing discussion groups that people really seem to like a lot. So we'll start with a short meditation, and then I'll ask you put out some questions one by one for you to contemplate during the meditation session. Then so that way you can really kind of, what do I think about these things, and get your own ideas a little bit clear. And then from there we'll break up into smaller groups of about 5 people and have a discussion where everybody goes around one by one and shares your reflections on those questions. Yeah. And then after everybody shared their reflections, then there can be some, back and forth talk. But until that time, we just hold the back and forth talk and just listen to others. Okay? And so, since this morning we started talking a little bit about forgiveness, I thought that might be a good topic for discussion, and to talk about forgiving and also apologizing, because the two things kind of go together, in some way. And to really look at what our thoughts are about those things and how that influences our relationships. And that influences, of course, the karma we create and how we feel about ourselves and so on. Okay? So, I'll recite the 4 measurables just as a way to lead us into the meditation. And then let's do some breathing meditation. Just watch your breath. Let your breath be exactly as it is. Don't force it in any way. Don't strain it or change the rhythm of your breath. Just let it be. You can place your attention either on the upper lip and the nostrils. Be aware of the sensations as the air goes here. Or you can be aware of your belly and the rise and fall of your belly. Okay? So put your attention on one of those 2 places and then just observe the breath from there. Okay? You probably will get distracted by a sound or a thought or a physical sensation or something like that. If you do, just notice it. Don't get mad at yourself or anything like that, but just bring yourself back home to the breath. Okay? So just keep it, whenever you get distracted, you keep coming home to the breath. And so in that way, be interested in your breath. We've been breathing our whole life. We've hardly ever paid attention to it. Yeah. And while you're breathing, create a feeling of contentment to be able to sit here in a safe place with like-minded people and breathe. That's all. Okay? So, let's start with that. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings never be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. So go into the breathing meditation now. Okay, so I'll pose some questions for you to think about. First, what does it mean to forgive someone? What is the meaning of forgiveness? And who would you like to forgive, or who do you need to forgive? So think of a specific person or group or whatever. And what makes it difficult for you to forgive that person? And here, not what they're doing that makes it difficult for you to forgive, but what's going on in your mind that makes it difficult for you to forgive them. practice do you have for overcoming whatever that is that prevents you from forgiving them? Let's do the same for apologizing. So what does it mean to apologize to somebody? What is apologizing? Who do you need to apologize to? What prevents you or what gets in the way of your apologizing to that person? Okay. Let's come out of your meditation. So repeat the questions in case you want to write them down, because you'll be discussing these questions. what does it mean to forgive someone? And who do you need to forgive? What hinders or prevents you from forgiving? And here we're talking about things inside of ourselves, not what they say and what they do. And fourth is, what ideas do you have for overcoming that hindrance to forgiving? Okay, and then the same for apologizing. What does it mean to apologize to somebody? Who do you need to apologize to? What prevents you from apologizing? And what ideas do you have for overcoming those things that are preventing you from apologizing? Let me just tell you how the group works. We break up into discussion groups of 5 people. Yeah, don't make big groups. It's not as effective. 5 is a really good number. There's an extra person here or there, then do 6 or do 4, but try and keep with 5 if you can. And if you have a very good friend here or a relative, go in a different group. So don't be in the same group as your close friend or your relative. And then when you're in your group, you sit around here, each person talks one at a time, and what you say is when each person's talking, you go through all these questions and share your reflections on that. So each person gets maybe, 3-4 minutes to share their reflections, so not your entire life story. Okay, but also not 2 sentences. Yeah. So about 3-4 minutes to share your reflections on these questions. And then each person, does that one by one. Okay. When you've come full circle around, then the remaining time you can have some cross discussion, okay, and build on each other's ideas. But on the first go around, when each person's speaking, no questions or comments. If you can't hear, tell them that or ask them to repeat something. But other than that, no questions or comments or cross talk, okay, until everybody's spoken. Okay, so we'll have some time for the discussion, and then I'll come back and we'll come back together as a group and do some debriefing. Okay, so you'll have probably until, let's say, 2:30, 2:25, somewhere, yes?
Do you want us to go around first with forgiveness and then go around a second time for apologies? Or
No, do it all at the same time. Yeah? And as you're doing that, you may also make some comments about, how do forgiving and apologizing go together? What's the relationship between the two? Okay? But remember here, you're always talking about yourself. I don't want, don't start telling a story of what they did, and then they did this, and then they did this, and then they did that. We're not talking about them. We're talking about what's happening in your mind. Okay? Okay, so go to it and feel free to rearrange your seats so you can sit in a circle.
Yeah, let's try that. Yeah, that's good. Broadcast our secrets. Done. Nice to go to you.
What does it mean to forgive?
Whatever it is that you feel you need to forgive, that it should be used to have an action and not necessarily
Let go. What does it mean to forgive?
in order to just willingness and only myself. Forgiveness is something
For me, it's my husband. What injures my mother from the whole way I feel her.
attachment, you know, attachment to anger,
What injures you?
attachment, feeling right, as well as inability to feel myself and separating me as an individual from my
It's a little bit hard, but one that kind of surprised me is the confidence that I got.
How to overcome it.
ideas for overcoming.
That's how you said I didn't stop. I'm sure I stopped. Anyways, but what surprised me
One of the
is
biggest
that
things is really kind of
even months
being
later,
gentle and forgiving.
whenever I think about it, it pops up in my mind as something I'm still
And then
talking about.
apologizing.
That-
In order
those are talking about it.
willingness
So what stops me from forgiving
So my days
to let
really
go,
puzzled
from
about
home
that part.
to
feeling right.
What
and he's
really stops me. That was right.
Use the opposite.
And what is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, what does it mean to apologize?
Kind of
I think just
a balance to that.
means accepting
I
that
don't know, I can just,
To apologize.
and
it's like some, the fact that it comes up in my mind tells me that I didn't let it go.
Yeah, letting go.
It's
what
still,
prevents me from
anger is still there.
that my wrong view is right.
I'm not sure what prevents me except that I was right.
And not be one
I mean, I don't know.
Pride often.
I didn't get what I wanted. It's-
And also fear
It should
of,
have been ready to say,
because
I'm sorry.
fear, like apologizing and then the apology is not good enough, that somehow it's like,
fear of getting
it's like, don't apologize,
What I
just don't do it. It's like,
afraid of
if I
being.
did not do it, then I would have.
And then I apologize.
Again, I just don't know with that.
And
I mean, I
ideas
did think, think in terms of karma. I just think, well, you know, this happened.
So I realized that I
It's
just,
just my karma.
Another
It's,
creature
we're
is
doing real sharp weapons with you.
trying to remove
It's my karma, you know.
sacrificing myself.
expected results or putting my thoughts into the other person's reaction.
Something in my
And I
past.
might just be better off
And then that would be
just to do
easier
it,
to
you know,
accept.
regardless. Because I think
Somehow I
that
accept it, but I don't.
What ideas do you have
Yeah, I
to
don't
overcome?
have.
Or what ideas do I have?
Or I don't have confidence in that way.
It's that meditating on all others that you really did for me.
So apologizing.
And remember that it's all there.
Apologize.
She washed and
I would
ironed
say,
it. She made those choices.
it might be, generally means to me acknowledging that I made a mistake. I did something that hurt somebody else. Yeah, I did, I'm sorry. I did saying, you know, to me, it's like saying, I wouldn't do it again. Like if I was in the situation again, I wouldn't do it. That's what it means to me. I need to apologize. That was tough.
Also,
Because I usually apologize to people. I could say my that's going a long time back.
Yeah.
Maybe my kids, sometimes when I get angry at them, I know I was like, oh,
still that same self-centeredness, fear of getting
usually I feel like they deserve this.
very juvenile stuff. It's embarrassing.
But sometimes I feel like I was just too short with them. I could say that. What prevents me from apologizing?
Yes, I know that's what prevents me, and you're not trying to fudge on what I do, overcoming these things.
I mean, it's kind of, that's more of a thing that seems to be easy to just let go of, because, you know, they don't behave, I get mad, it's over, it's gone, it happens again the next day, it's just kind of building. I don't seem to get stuck on it, they don't seem to be stuck on it. What ideas for overcoming it? You know, I probably next time, when I realize I was overly short,
And then see myself as the person I am, not better or worse. Just as I would myself.
It's really letting go of all those negative feelings that
Yes,
are actually hurting you more than you ever hurt any other person. You know, hold on to that really does eat you up on the inside. What do you need to forgive? Right now, I don't seem to have issues with a lot of people, although probably I could say management where I work, just how I handle certain situations. Yeah, I've been working on that, so that's kind of passing out. That's been good.
I feel the
But
same
the
way.
biggest hindrance to trying to you know, you're really saying, I'm right. Why should I forget? You know, that always comes up. Is that you always go back to that ego thing. You know, but that's
The next step.
you know, but when you know, so
He's one on the
when you get that like that, I'm right.
What prevents you from?
You kind of have to, you know, to kind of overcome that kind of you know,
What ideas?
maybe looking at it from where they're coming from. Maybe I can
Ideas, but not
see it differently, and then when I start looking at like the war situation, it's like, you know, still financial times, they have to make different
That was the
decisions.
last one. Oh, okay.
How things are being
Oh, okay, so
enacted,
that's good.
but at least I understand why, and they probably feel horrible about making decisions that they have to reduce the workforce. So, you know, and, you know, I should think that they felt the same thing. It's like, so if I try to put myself in there, then that could help me, you know, give them. Okay.
have the idea,
ask them to apologize.
but I feel they don't.
And then who do we forgive? Well, on my list.
This one I have experience.
My daughter.
And this is like, if you've done something, said something, and hurt someone else, and you see it,
He,
you know,
I have
passed
to.
I really feel you really just shouldn't hesitate to apologize.
Be very
Yeah.
my parents were,
Yeah, there has to be a strong
and
relationship.
that was one of my first wishes, that
Yeah.
something happened to him.
And,
He
I mean, at least for an apology to at least appear sincere to the other person, that, you know, you have to express
It's
something.
me trying to
If
justify.
that's not there, they're going to say
Because
that.
I can't get it.
And there has to be something, you know, you kind of commit to yourself that
He's not a safe
you're going to
person.
not do that again.
I'm just asking a question.
So right now, there's no apologize to,
So for me,
but
that's,
in
I
the past,
changed him and everything like that.
yeah. I mean, I have big things to apologize for.
And I'm not always trying to say that
Maybe
I'm
to
sorry, but I
my
have
husband,
always trying to
because we've been together for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
3 years ago, I tested
Let's
HIV positive. He's HIV negative.
Um,
Yeah, so, yeah.
apologies.
He's divided me, so, you know, I know the power of forgiveness from his son. He showed that to me. And, you know, he stood beside me, you know, day in, day out.
It's
You know, he never,
you know, and like, and it's like that, but then it gets to the point where it's just really
yeah, I think that's the
necessary
biggest thing that I thought people from apologizing.
stop fighting or whatever.
Right, it's really nothing more than pride or ego. That's,
I know my mom and
I mean,
dad,
I'm learning to say, I hear you.
but
as
once you've seen you hurt someone,
but her
you
My
shouldn't
son
have
is on
you
a
shouldn't have
big
back
apology for you, because he's, you know, not blaming me and
because that's what my
being
responsibility.
that's all.
You have
So we had this conversation, he said, you just need to show learning to say.
It's the thing that I just need to see. That was her wish.
But I feel like I can't go.
I know my
I knew that. I think I'm usually quite good at just letting go and forgiving.
more on it?
Still does to
Or I just get coming to your space where you're need to apologize. I don't say now, right now.
you know, I mean, even with all the stuff
Working on as much. I didn't really feel
managed to understanding that it's part of covenant and probably how to but me, what does it mean to say that Aaron's gonna have his almost either I told him
Right. Yeah.
but really identifying what it is and then sitting beside and don't intellectual face and really it's so easy to say you forget that one actually it's to believe you so it's very hard it's what you have to you're carrying life with and so it makes it feel like you have to know
All she knows is.
to forgive all things like things went wrong but actually
This is your own mother.
yeah, yeah.
what hinders me from forgiving
And we see it from this side, you know?
Yeah.
It's almost to me it's like forgiving, and also for you, so that they go, and that's.
An apology that really space of that, just like, let you go.
I'm just trying to.
How do you I don't need to apologize. I feel too, but if I start really deep again, I find how I felt there, and then also sticking to the fact that I can write it again.
What's your name? Lena? It's interesting for me because
What is why to apologize is to know I could stop about things prior to seeing myself.
Given so there's happiness here, I totally forgiven.
And I'll get to that, but that means
so really, that's how
give
we're
yourself to be forgiven, and you actually do it.
Because it's not going on to
You're not going to. I don't get to that point. I feel like it was too bad. So what
The sharing house.
that's actually in my mind. I know for forgetting myself because I keep like I know that whereas it's no myself, I'm expecting more time. So that's what's preventing. So that's actually very easy because if I do myself, and it has happened. Yeah, it has. So that's what prevents. I don't have any idea. Ideas I have.
It's interesting. I think that timely topic for your
I was talking to I think that person, she said, I asked her, and she said, I asked purification, and I see apologizing like
but we have these kind of grudges.
forgiveness. I have to
And
feel like
it's interesting, it's our way of apologizing and our way of forgiving and everything.
and even if the apology isn't accepted,
And so I've actually learned a lot about like,
you don't.
What prevents you
So
from
that's what
apologize.
yeah, I think it's really great.
We like his behavior,
What did you try?
which
And
is
then
some people like give their right arm. And I thought like, for a while, I thought, well, that's why I that's amazing, I should be grateful with that, but I'm not. And I think like, I'm not, it's not, and I think like in the discussion, for me, it's really, I've really come to understand that it's apologies
It's
are
more like for me
giving
freedom.
dimensions, and that they have to have dimensions, and so we're literally going back through the experience.
Forgiving someone, what is it that someone has?
It's really fascinating for us. It's like accounting for the other person what we
Of something that's value to you.
and then it's
So
talking
you
about
think
how
about
how we contribute to the
things I
pain and
value
suffering.
and why
And
I
actually clarify that this is how it was really like, you forgot about this.
And on the other hand,
But the
it
first
also
time we did
makes
it,
it look
You have for overcoming
and the relationship all this. So why do I feel like way by that person? Why
I was shocked
if I think
more about like what his pain was.
greater satisfaction in that person, I think greater
And instead of feeling bad, I actually
So for me, when you have those
I'm so
moments,
sorry.
The person was.
This is how.
and you
So for me, it's really about.
bring me the question. What does it mean to be sorry?
Seeing that, understanding whether or not we can.
So it's, you start to think about potentially new experiences with shaded thoughts
It's
and
important to
minds.
That
me
might
to
to think.
the issue that I have in life is about the forgiveness. How do I
For me,
have enough? How am I
forgiveness is a
saying
way of letting go, not easy, but more
how
active.
do I feel like this is our
You are
core?
free from the attachments that make you things.
How do I stop feeding it? And that's where I go
When you're first time,
is I'm very
it takes you by
very
surprise.
self-critical. I'm
And
very
the second, third time,
I'm
once
very
you're
critical of myself in the world. And so
When I
it's very easy to
get
just have
what
like,
I know
oh,
about
this
it
is
and how that
I'm always
is so adventurous.
ways of.
So I think there's a.
So, in a way, it's
So I have like this feeling of, like, my income for me, if I like give in to
It's
them,
not just about
I'm already acting like so
have, what ideas you
But
have.
It's all over the place.
well, they say they're free, so take.
Right.
That's what I was gonna say.
Right.
What, at the moment, I can think of maybe my previous course took some trouble on my work.
And actually, Buddhism is very.
But then,
Except if I was doing.
my husband was saying other exceptions, so you can think about it as like you can open up this.
When I was younger.
Have to feel
So I think that is,
inside, then
yeah,
that's
so I think it's that way.
What does it mean to apologize to somebody?
It means I'm gonna set the intention to not do it again.
Yeah, what hinders you from
So that really
Let them
requires
know
giving
you
up.
can
that
even
I intend on not doing it again.
give out the moral codes that you follow. So if something has, if someone harms someone, then at least you have right to blame that person. Instead of maybe doing this and not
Oh, somebody apologized, but I.
so you have to grow up believing that kind of idea, that there's no and if someone harms you, it's in mind like protect yourself in a way. So, but at the same time, you don't want to get
What ideas do you have
in
for
actually harming the person bad, but at the same time,
Doing the purification practice
that
that was taught
that
by
kind of
Venerable
in the world,
Yeah.
in social justice, yeah,
But I didn't have empathy.
and give it back.
So,
So, I don't think Dharma is there in me, I don't know,
There were three things.
but I don't think technically
About what?
but
Say the
to
question.
think about it in different sense.
Like what
So
keeps
I'm
you
not
from
being
apologizing?
that
Usually
is
it's like,
forgiving me.
Ignorance and ego, ego is thinking I'm right.
oh, thinking you're wrong.
Ego is thinking I'm right.
that is kind of
That's
how
ego.
the United States. I've
Well,
got
the
like, it didn't even make any
so-
sense to me. I felt
So whenever I'm moments when, oh, that I cannot forgive, I think those are the times when I think, why is it when I come to sort of doubt myself, why is it wrong to, or not good to, be at least blaming or,
Mostly it's kind of selfish because it keeps me from getting home.
give credit, well, to
But it also.
the situation where I was the,
That's the only way I can help it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Usually the outcome is better than everybody else.
because you don't want to give the other person,
Well, I think you
I don't want to excuse the other person
Now,
by
it's
saying,
interesting, the question is,
forgiving the other person.
what we can say, to understand that, I think we have your answer. But I thought that was
Yeah, I'm sorry.
for me, I feel like apologizing, even like on
if my
that,
kids are like 21 and 18 or 22
I
and
I
can
don't
18,
have
apologize
problems.
like, 10 years ago,
but I can apologize
I grew up
did without
I
or
being Catholic, so, and I also
accept
apologize.
apology
So,
really
you know, here, I've been hearing from my
I
friends
literally don't think I can.
but,
So we try and implement that same logic and
I think
thinking like, well,
apology is recognizing your mistake and giving a voice to
let
it,
myself off.
and putting an intention and motivation
And I think
into
part of what
what
makes
you
it hard
yourself
because
become
that's
aware
not
of. So it's not just you knowing it, but you are sort of owning it by, saying it out loud to the public and letting,
and that's what makes it hard because
be out there.
it's hard to let other people off the hook for things they've done to us.
You need to, like I said,
It's usually hard to let
usually
ourselves
just
off.
apologize right away. If it's something that bothers you, yeah, you can totally
You know, apologizing seems to become.
I'm sure
I think in order to apologize,
there's people that I
if you really have regret and you really feel like
that I've heard, because usually it's people who was hurt, they come and then people who hurt, they don't remember.
then extend that
Encourage
to
you to
20%
learn
of
other
the people
people's
that you are.
So,
I realize you
I'm
didn't.
sure that there, yeah,
But I mean, for me, apologizing is
people,
You know,
that
responsibility for it. Realizing you may have burnt that bridge.
keep me in my
But you
prayers.
actually responsibility permanently. Now that I love you,
Say, right, forgive, yes, yeah, so I ask for forgiveness and I try to
how far back do we
what
go?
overcomes, I think what helps you overcome these is think about
What you were saying.
yourself as a well-being. So you think about it.
Because then it starts to become sincere. So what if you feel it?
Yeah, absolutely.
The motivation to want to forgive is much bigger than even the
Try to find other ways to show that you can actually
someone or
change
calling out on their stuff. That's
one thing that we
huge.
didn't mention
Why is it so much more difficult to forgive people that are close to us? Why is that?
Not just ego, but I think she.
Why can't it just be that's really great topic? And the fact
Just
that
that
we have
apologize.
people that
Ideal
love
is to have regret and
and
accept
and love ourselves.
Our ego-based stuff is that we can't be
Number one, you should
Right.
share everything you've done. So it's even still hard. For me, that's a big part. It's like if I do it, then I'm done. I'm like,
For that.
let's say we're doing the down you know, the world is
but I also think you feel, especially so free. Responsibility
Isn't that a contradiction? I mean, if they, you're,
minimize the
someone's coming to multiple times and so you know, they're
rather than try to
things, so.
just
I think it's more,
or yeah, I don't want to be
Right.
They're gonna sprout.
They're gonna sprout sometime.
Flowers are weeds, you know, you gotta pick.
Well, yeah, ego and delusion, I would say too, the delusion that, okay, because there are, like, societies that are, and cultures that aren't, and they're fine with that, but States or whatever, like, that's the only way to be married, and I'm not saying that is obviously when you get married, it is,
it's not,
a contract, but
it's not so much
also,
letting go of what you're supposed to say, what you're supposed to say, which is just all I've learned here. It's like, let go of that reality.
It might
So my reaction
I think that's
saying so mild.
if I let go of
so much
that
easier said.
Right.
I can actually
Attended
get
P. Miller's.
and then
Right.
yeah.
Good luck.
And I tried to do that at least one day in one scenario. Like I feel myself that we're and then like, okay, let me just change my mind. Because you know, like you take that one thing to say, I don't know, like to me, like you're driving, like you park, and then it's just like I'm fine,
It's all that was
whatever.
everything is all the way from
You're there.
to you. You know, like
So you know they know you're there. They're not ready. They're taking too long. How I feel about I mean, I'm just using it as a general example, but you feel like it's happening to you when it's doing what you can't find yourself. They want to be like on the way that they want to have. It's very, you know, I try to change my mind. Because out there, there's usually all the but when they're and then history or whatever, and it's happening, at least it just shows down inside. It's very hard to do. Actually, do it stay, I'm sure, but I try to you know, so much. I tried to like change change your mind, and change your mind, but like, okay, this is not happening. Yeah, and most of the time, it isn't. Like, I get the confirmation, this is not at all
What do you want to know?
what I was thinking. Yeah, so
You won't.
feel relieved with that. Just like, oh, like there's progress in my mind. Like it's just being able to change it, you know. And it's just I just say that I go out to try to keep my mind and
Did you have mom?
of course I can't remember.
Yeah, oh, yeah. You do on each beat, you say it. Each beat you say it.
I would say it depends on who's talking about it.
Yeah.
She might have been like, oh, whatever, you know, but she may not have really taken it, or she may have been like, oh my God, you know.
So everyone you do,
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. I was like, she's talking about herself, that's what she's talking about.
I've always, sometimes I use my own application, now, so no one's ever told me. Or no, wait, back home, right? So, the slightest thing that they said.
You mentioned that you were given perfect like that explanation from your son. Because I mean, I realized how much I connected that verification practice with another alcoholic, which was generating regret. And it's actually, that's
When I'm holding on to things, it's like, that's why I go to that.
I have. How many times that he's just doing this to piss me off?
Thank you.
Okay. Maybe he's not trying to
I know nothing.
for like my motivation. Maybe that's not it. Like, no doubt, my buttons are getting pushed. They are. I feel that exactly. But maybe that's not the intention. And I think it's really challenging too, because there are lots of times, you know, like I brought up before with my partner, I mean, he's like, oh, so you're my mind reader. And it's like, actually, I know what you're thinking. And I can't believe that the nerve to say that. I mean, at least now, I realize how nervy it is. I still see it.
You're just kind of talking about making it.
You know, because I think like, okay, I know this experience or I've had this or whatever. So, and then it's like our mind gets visually like to circumstance. I was so we had an argument about the same thing yesterday that I'm having today. It's really dangerous even being going through that word and things. Oh, that was from your times you really are two different
Practice more
similar conversations are different in so many ways.
And after I read that, I was like, oh, what do I include myself? You know, without it being like a selfish thing. It's like, oh, right,
So we can talk about how we all have different things coming up with ways of
like it really just changed.
I like to read your reason for well, you're gonna like time and that was
Shedding light on my own messed up.
we don't know. And I actually just kind of like
Shine light on me.
maybe what time is needed and how to so it's like it's a lot of that like little that has given me a lot of
Starting with yourself.
How can I even apologize? What is coming at me around me? But the thing I feel, which absolutely feel so like, I've had trouble during my program, and even when you do the purification, I just wash through me, purify me, tell me about my stuff, they're different ones. I was just surprised, and if I decide to get every day, I say, I'm attached to that feeling where I
days later, I don't want to go there again. And doubly means unchanging. Or I don't know how to speak. It's unchanging. But then because I like your
like you and you serve it enough, and then once it becomes this before, it becomes the like emptiness. You don't know your
Exactly.
so much.
Exactly.
But it's not sincere.
There's really deep patterns, etc.
Sometimes you hear
So much of like the daily things, the small things, that's what it is, right? Like the strong towards the camel's back, that we're listening to.
I have tried.
I'm not
which is
is it not a life?
Absolutely.
you feel like to be ready.
And then I guess I don't want to trivialize it.
Well, it's not a,
Yes.
it's not each of you have to bring equal amounts of
Carving down
loads
and
to
great
the
story.
table.
Yeah.
You know, the law.
I mean, you never express it beautifully about what to apologize, and it, that in a way is free.
So much
Exactly.
real
So,
stuff is like,
Brother, how would you know all that one?
you know,
they may not have the ability to give.
Is it just like
and I
It's really your own
yourself?
soul to,
kind of like,
you may not even know anything, but I mean, seriously, that you are.
and then it just, you know, I was like
You may
learning
not know why.
when it's like hard, it's more that I it's serious.
You empathize with they
You know,
feel
and
by something
I
that
need
is
to know it's not okay. It's a job. It's not like it's a job.
And that's what I think that I knew.
So you forgive someone who doesn't know they need to be forgiven. Or apologize for things you did nothing wrong, or the person doesn't take it. So you're doing all these things, really not knowing the outcome of it, or and if you want to control, I'm just going on your head. It is going down. It's just all in your own mind. Right. So it's wonderful. That's a really skill. Yeah.
Yes, it's true.
You can see that.
So what came up in your discussion? Was it a little bit difficult at some points? Or was it relieving? Or what came up? What did you decide? What is apologizing? What is forgiving? Yeah.
In our group at the end it came out very clearly, and I'm still stealing your words, they were beautiful. It's all in your own mind. It's not out there. It's not the other person per se. It's your perception of what you need to forgive them for, and then what you feel you need to apologize for. These are all things that you're almost making up in your own head. Yes, there are real things happening, but it's this whole give and take in your own mind. And if you can't, you need to settle that with
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes we apologize for something and the person says, what do you mean apologize for some apologizing? Or sometimes we may, you know, in our mind, forgive somebody, and they had no idea they did anything we didn't like. What did I do? What else came out of your discussion? Yeah.
I think in our group, we feel that, we came to the understanding that forgiving is a lot about ourselves letting go. Being able to let go of whatever that was the pain or that cord that holds.
Unplugging the cord to the pain. Yeah.
So letting go of the pain, letting go of the anger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And what gets in the way of forgiving or apologizing? Yeah.
In our group, we discussed a lot about attachment and fear, getting in the way. The fear, especially, we have kind of posed the question, why is it so hard or harder to forgive those much closer to us than strangers or people that aren't as close? And Lena had said that it's so much more difficult because of the attachment to the relationship and the fear of losing that relationship. And then we also talked about wrong view, you know, and being fixated that our view was the right view.
Yeah. So a lot of times there is fear. Fear will prevent us from forgiving or apologizing. There's something else that often prevents us too.
Ego.
Ego.
Right.
Pride. Yeah.
Ignorance.
Do you see how pride sometimes, I don't want to say I'm sorry. Yeah. Or what they did was so wrong, you know, they need to apologize to me before I forgive them. Who's suffering when we think like that?
We are.
We are. They have to apologize to me, then I'll let go of my anger to them. And until then, but you know, we're just making ourselves suffer, aren't we? What else came out?
If you let go of your abuse, then you have nothing to connect you to your parent. There's no connection. You're connected by the abuse.
Very insightful. Yes. Sometimes our mind has made such a big deal of the abuse that if we give up the idea that I'm a victim of abuse, we don't know who we are anymore. How do I present myself if I don't present myself as a victim of abuse? How do I relate to my parents if I don't look at them as the victimizers? I may have to see something good about them. And then we flip to the other side. If I see anything good, then I am falling under their sway, and what happened? No, seeing something good about the person who abused you doesn't mean you have to fall under their sway again. It just means that you're realizing they're not something cast in concrete, that they're a multifaceted human being. And I think I notice for myself sometimes when the fear comes up, I'm afraid I'm going to get back into the same dysfunctional relationship with whoever it was that I had before. But then I realize fear really isn't appropriate because I have the ability to discriminate what kind of relationship I want to have and what I don't. And I don't have to get back in to that same pattern and that same way of relating with somebody as there was before. You know, it's possible to change it.
Wouldn't that also then go a level deeper and talk about trusting yourself and being so frightened and fearful and not being able to trust yourself?
Yes.
And to judge.
Right. Right. Yeah. So being so used to just whatever the other person says, we let it impinge on ourselves. So then we feel manipulated, we feel controlled. Yeah. But actually, it's not them manipulating and controlling us. It's our inability at that moment to think clearly for ourselves. But once we can think clearly and make decisions, then we can go ahead in a fearless way. Yeah.
I just had a light bulb when you said this, because my thinking was, well, what's to prevent the other person from having the repetitive behavior that we previously had? But if I change my approach, that tells them, well, we don't have to operate the way we used to. I'm offering a different way for us to relate to one another.
Right.
And it can work that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm saying that kind of behavior is not appropriate. I don't want to be in a relationship where that is going on, you know, and I'm proposing another way. Hmm? Often, one of the things that prevents us from forgiving is we think that if we forgive, we're saying what they did was okay. That's not forgiving. Yeah, this thing, forgive and forget, I don't agree with. Yeah, you forgive, but you remember what happened so that, not so that you can hate the other person forever and ever, but so that you can see how to prevent getting in that kind of situation again yourself. Or you remember so that you can prevent yourself from acting like that other person acted towards you. Excuse me. Yeah. So forgiving somebody doesn't mean what they did was okay. It simply means I'm stopping being angry about it. I'm stopping the hurt and anger within myself. What you did is not okay. It's not appropriate. And I'm not getting back into that situation again. Yeah, I was very clear about that. But we don't have to hate the other person. Yeah. In other words, you know, when we aren't able to think clearly for ourselves, it seems like our anger protects us from falling into the old habit with that person again. But the anger doesn't really protect us. It keeps us very imprisoned. Yeah, clarity and wisdom can protect us. Yeah.
A lot of times for me with forgiveness, I sit and I look at it, the situation, and take like a little inventory of it. A lot of times I can see I did something that caused the other person to do something, and it's just suffering batting each other.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. When you stop and look, you can see that very often, without realizing it, we did something that set the other person off. You know, maybe we hit one of their buttons without knowing it, without, you know, whatever, and it set them off, and then we felt victimized, but so do they. Yeah. So this whole thing of, I'm going to wait until you apologize until I forgive. That's another way of putting ourselves in prison. It's putting ourselves under their control. I have no ability to let go of my anger and be happy until they apologize. That's giving them all the power. They don't need to apologize. They can think whatever they want. From our side, we change how we're looking at it.
And I look at my apology, when I give an apology, it's setting the intention that I'm not gonna do that behavior again, and let them know how I'm gonna do things different.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at an apology, when you do an apology.
Yeah. To really say you won't do it again, and especially, not just say you won't do it again, because everybody always says that.
No, but set the intention, but say what you're gonna do different.
Exactly.
We were actually talking about that in our group too, and how in many ways a really well thought out apology mirrors the Vajrasattva purification process.
Right.
That you actually go through the process of actually feeling regret, but not just feeling regret, trying to understand, how that your behavior affected that person, and then change that behavior going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually, an apology has multiple levels it's not just regret, it's also the intention.
Right. Yeah. And it's not some kind of false apology just to soothe somebody else. Because that's not a real one.
Right.
The question becomes for forgiveness. Sometimes you feel like you can't move on unless that person forgives you. That you're kind of stuck in this mold. And unless they forgive you, you will never be set free. Because there will always be this thought in their mind that is false. And you feel you're stuck because they have this fault. And I know that's complete attachment. That's it.
Yeah.
But it's you put yourself in that prison because you believe they're never going to forgive you. So it's
yeah.
I have a question about that. When you say, okay, so you're asking for someone to forgive you, but did you apologize in the first place?
Yeah.
Or are you, because I understand sometimes you can put the apology out there, but sometimes if I put an apology out there, I can expect them not to accept it. And, if I hurt someone bad enough and they don't want to accept it, that's okay.
Yeah.
If they can't, they have to deal with their own feelings and everything like that. I just do my best to make sure that they know I'm being sincere about that. But I wouldn't hold that they don't give me, I wouldn't hold that against them.
Yeah.
You just can't.
No, you can't.
You can't.
You can't, because you can't control what the other person's thinking.
Yeah.
And for both apologizing and forgiving, it's us it's us revising our attitude and our feelings towards the other person. It doesn't matter whether they accept our apology or reject it, whether they also forgive us or not, whether they apologize to us or not. It all depends on us changing our attitude towards them. Because we can't control. Yeah, it's impossible. And I think that thing is, when we say they must forgive me, it's somehow because we're not really forgiving ourselves. Yeah, we're not, it came out, somebody said before, trusting ourselves, trusting, yes, I really am sorry, and, I realize my mistake, and it doesn't mean I'm a bad person, and I'm going on, and, I would love for them to heal too, but I can't make them.
Sometimes with somebody that you feel like they can't forgive you or they won't forgive you, for me, I feel like as long as I do the next right thing and do what's right and they see my actions in the long run, the forgiveness may come slowly.
Exactly. Yeah. And often you just have to give them time because they have to process things themselves. Yeah.
And I think after the apology, if you go forward with the intention of benefiting them and others, it's kind of in your own mind, being released from it, So that kind of helps to not have the heavy feeling.
Right. Yeah.
The other, as we've been talking, I've realized sometimes there's a need for acceptance rather than just an apology or forgiveness. In the case of in community, it's easy to get offended and not understand that there's no malintent. There is no malintent. That's just how they do things, and we need to accept that sometimes, and not necessarily require an apology or require an acceptance.
Yes.
So my husband does this. He will say, "I love you especially." That's his way of acknowledging that that's just who I am, and I'm not no malintent. When I'm like, he's very particular, and I'm not. And living in that kind of community is hard sometimes. So it's a very, finding room for each other and accepting who we are is also part of not even getting to the point of needing to do an apology or to require forgiveness, but just accept sometimes how that people are going to be very different.
Yeah. Accepting people's differences, and especially when you're dealing cross-culturally. We will often get offended by things that people from different cultures or different kind of upbringings do. That's completely normal for them. But in our family or in our culture, it's not what you do. And so we have to kind of broaden our mind and realize, hey, this is just normal for them. I don't need to impute, motivations and so forth on top of them.
So this is regarding forgiveness as well as compassion. I think it came up in our group about forgiving yourself and being good to yourself. And I've posed the question to a couple of different teachers, and it's because I don't know, can you feel and can you truly forgive others and feel compassion when you don't feel that you have compassion or forgiveness for yourself?
I don't know. I think having compassion and forgiveness for ourselves facilitates having compassion and forgiveness for others. But I also think having compassion and forgiveness for others facilitates having compassion and forgiveness for ourselves. Yeah. So I don't know that it's only going from one to the other. I think it can go back and forth both ways.
That's a really good answer. So thank you.
Then everybody's happy with my answer. Either everybody's happy or nobody's happy. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just whether it's happy, people are happy or not. Okay, so let's take a little break. Is it getting warm in here again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Windows. I think if the door stays open, then it's cooler as well.
Okay, yeah, and maybe
shut the windows.
or ask them to turn the heat off or something. So let's, what do you need, 20 minutes? 20-minute break, and then 5 after? And then we'll talk about what you brought up before lunch, about, being mad at ourselves and low self-esteem and so on. Okay.
Only 40 minutes for that.
And I was supposed to teach from Arya Deva's text, and I haven't even gotten to it. Okay.
I know. Right.
Mutually beneficial. I've gotten so far. I promise. Yeah.
And that's what the movement
some sort of compassion toward others, but like and like I know that's not healthy or beneficial or so psychotic.
come to teach you here 1 or 2 days a week helps tremendously. I know you don't have that opportunity.
Well, I also, I was on Venerable's teachings on every day. They have almost every day.
One, and of course, once you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Ask 5 different teachers.
It's like an hour and a half long teaching.
Never got that answer.
I watch it on YouTube. I watch it.
It's good luck.
I just watch the
I do it on my tablet.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, if you do that every week and really focus and really listen, it's really easy.
Also, when you just come here and get in person.
Yeah, yeah.
There's something that's like hard out the Abbeys for Bessie Abbey is Venerable's monastery, and they have their YouTube, so almost every single day they do like a different topics or whatever. Venerable does a lot of them, or the other monasteries in the
And what I have found
every day to every day there's a video. That is healthy. It is really, really healthy.
And then I'll look
I stopped watching and listening to music so much. I stopped TV and the music.
yeah, I like that. I'll take that home with
Just
me.
replace it.
I read a lot. I read a lot of history, and I do read my books. I do in between. You know, but I'm not like consistently.
It really makes a difference when you do it every day. I think that's healthy. I have a long way to go. I feel like I just discovered more.
Right. How long have you been coming to teach?
So, 4.5 years.
Wow. But you'd already figured your parents' problem. I don't know. I mean, how you were going to see your own parents. Yeah, that's why I have to stop thinking that's the other side of it. You know.
Mine wasn't really horrible. It's just that my parents fall constantly. But they were also really good at other ways.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's not it sounds like it was
because I was the one in the family, like the just to be a good girl to sit down.
in her own way. She did the best she could.
Yeah, that's true.
She did the best she could. She just didn't have the skills.
Because it's really something here what happened.
For her, yeah, exactly. She was just carrying on.
And as a mother, you know, it'd be up to my kids, you know, what I do. But it wasn't because
It just doesn't come.
they never been a function, including my son-in-law.
I'm sure you give them great stuff. It's great. Loving breath.
It's just so happy because life is just, I've always been It's just here, this Catholic.
Like she said, you remember, you forget. That's true.
And then, of course,
And the emptiness yourself.
Yeah, that's we're being understand.
Start going to
I know. It's also ridiculous. Childish. It makes me feel so childish.
I know.
And I wanted so much of these
Oh, you're not the
Did you recently move here, or are you visiting?
No, I recently moved. I'm being here about just years. I'm living in Chico.
Yeah, that's far.
Yeah.
I know it's far.
It's
We don't know you, sir, so don't even try to move. We don't know you, so you're down the road and go back and we'll see you.
I've been in other parts before, but not for a long time, like for 3 months.
It's so sorry.
How,
But it really does happen.
I just
how
thought
did you end up coming here?
now it's
Job, family, or?
A job, I'm a psychologist, so
I just forgot again. I waited too long. You should have interrupted. I should have interrupted.
Good for you. I mean, did you just?
I just had to know.
it's kind of an adventure.
Yeah, you don't know when. You gotta take the opportunity when it comes.
I know, I never thought in my life about living here, so it was like an entire surprise for me. So.
Your English is very, very, very good.
No.
No,
I know.
I think my English is pretty good.
No, you understand and you speak very well.
I tried. It's so great to have a teacher because they are here.
That's right, you don't know.
That's what I mean. It's like right now they're all
I'm feeling great to live in here because
they're all like
I was used to go to
mixing up right now because I'm trying to think of a certain
very
one.
often, like
So you have them like in your
so there's no.
I have some. I have like 4 or 5
Like the G-line. So I was like feeling relaxed. Like I really need like a sauna or like to see very often.
Yeah. It's very,
Well, I thought it
in
was
this
something
place.
I remember one is from and that's how they mix it. Yeah.
I started to come.
And then I try to do the book every day.
Just about, since the
Never actually went to
I do
many
know
retreats.
some, I do know nothing, I know nothing.
Okay.
And it's nice, it's nice just to have, it's like family.
It is.
The street to me taught me how to
I
study.
began to know about Buddhism like 4 years ago in New
Read
York.
5 minutes and
Yeah, I
meditate.
was shocked.
Next
I was
day,
like,
read
I'm
for 5
staying
minutes.
here.
Read for 5
Yeah,
minutes.
There wasn't too much to think about.
Go back and do it again. Don't leave long.
And now it's so wonderful to have access to iPad and
Yeah, I'm
YouTube.
writing my
and
notes in my phone.
And I've been,
Yeah, but it's
the
medicine.
center has a lot of webinars.
Yeah, I saw the website.
So you can see all
I have some
the teachings from different people.
And I also have a video teacher. So sometimes I like to like because they have a lot of history.
Woodstock.
It's 2 hours from Chico Beach.
My family is in Yes, it's near Hudson.
Oh, yes.
Woodstock, New York. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I've been here.
I started doing
Color-based,
something
I'm
else,
sorry.
I wanted to do it. So I just walked past the
Yeah, you're
right.
I've actually.
So I think that's more what it
Okay.
is. I'm not afraid to take direction.
Eventually, my sister ended up in, she went to school. There's a lot of state universities in that area. And she ended up having a family there. And so there they met my mom. It's just a little too, it's like 4 hours, it's too much one day. I've done it, but it's very tiring.
I haven't like,
Woodstock is beautiful.
it's huge.
So you can go either way. You can just leave the direction.
Yeah. Sometimes I
Yeah.
like to come here.
That is so, we have no clue.
It's Tibetan.
We have no idea.
Yeah, it's Tibetan, but it's Kagyu. This is not
We had an idea.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
I had a problem with Kagyu.
Then it starts getting spread out across the country, a lot of places, Virginia, California, maybe, but.
My first teaching was in Tibet House. It's just like New York. In the 6th Avenue.
Yeah.
I went there and there was a monk.
I don't know this. I don't know
I was talking
to this. And what
was nothing very important. And I said, the teaching of next weekend will cost $400. I said, okay, definitely cannot afford that, so thank you for telling me, blah, blah, blah. And he said, is this will be your first approach to Buddhism? Yes. I can't. Okay, I will do some voluntary stuff, and then you can come for free.
Oh, okay.
So I was very excited. I met a monk there.
And I'm told you were that angry person.
You know him?
Changed so much.
Yes.
Oh, man.
You know him?
Well, we don't know that person.
Yeah, it's from one.
So you talked to him?
Yeah.
I can lose
You
it.
saw him in New York?
I can lose it. She sees me losing, I think.
I've been
I can
trying
lose it.
to go.
And I can zip
Oh,
them up and
really?
just.
Yeah. So I got
It's
this.
full with steam coming out.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there's something coming up this week.
Online?
People that
He's
push
kind
my
of famous.
buttons the most are my daughter and my son.
So I met him. I talked with him about 20 seconds. Not that much.
He can.
I
He can.
knew your daughter, because I know my daughter can do it for me.
He's in,
See, what I figured out is he says something, my daughter will go along with him, so it's probably him more than her.
Serenity.
Oh, so, yeah. You're great teachers. 2 against 1.
They're my home mama. I don't know.
It's okay.
Because I live in the
Yeah, but it's too much here. One of these, take this chair and push it out.
I'm the outlaw.
I'd rather have the chair than my knees.
Yeah.
I'm the
It is.
outlaw.
Now that I am used to being adult, it's kind of different. It's the techniques are very different.
But
I'm sorry, this is Lisa. So, like,
When I start coming to regular classes again, I'll be able to start sitting and getting in the chair. Sitting on the floor, getting in the chair, ready to get back in the shape, because I can't go too long, because my back's been injured. I can start.
as a matter of fact, his books were the first thing I started to read.
I sit on the floor for a long time.
Luminous Mind.
Um,
He talks about inner.
no, I was not, but I saw him last
Oh, okay, I didn't go into that one because that was.
But it's very deep. It's very deep, and I didn't finish it. It's like
So
that was my first time
I'm
seeing
doing
it.
it now is going on.
It's really amazing experience.
Thank you for sharing.
I just started hearing the sound of you. I just it was really
This particular.
I mean, well, I cried when I watched the documentary or on his website.
On his website.
Winking Deeds.
Their hour, if you go to the website,
where he
not
talks
through YouTube, they're little pieces. Their hour.
They're not necessarily going, but yeah, like everything with China, about like even with how very friend of mine was Chinese citizen, you know.
Also, I need to go in and
Look at you.
It's really
I knew that. This is the first winter in 2 years. I've had shorts on. It's the first winter in 2 years I've not worn shorts.
And he, when I live in
Why are you shaking? Why do you say that?
I like it, I just like the sound thing.
every time I
Very
watch
The first
cleansing.
winter in 2
his
years.
responses were very
because it depends on
And I swear I was having shorts on by March. It didn't happen and I was very,
it was
very disappointed. More than disappointed.
You practice.
I was almost in tears.
Yes.
But at the end, it's just like, wow. It's about those from your mind.
So,
I mean, it's funny if you ever, who does this and just you want to hear it, like, check it out. It's all questions, it's not answers, it's all.
yeah.
As he said,
I have to have a certain support.
he said,
But I do sneak away
this is
where
an
the Adidas flip-flops.
you read, question it,
Can't do it too long.
it's very enlightening.
Are you near the ocean?
I live right at the end of the harbor.
You just, this is what it is, and you do it this way. Okay.
That's the best
But
way.
you know,
I think I'm right at the end of downtown.
I don't understand. And, you know,
Were any of your family fishermen or lobster?
My grandfather was an engineer on boats.
I think that's the best
Yeah, my
thing,
grandmother's house I built.
that you can find your own way through the
Be out,
through the teacher.
they would be back when they're supposed to,
But I guess
and that kind of thing. So their house I built.
accepts.
It's not,
It has a dialogue,
it's hard.
science,
When you, when the boy don't come in when it's supposed to. It's
Yeah,
hard.
for the Christian sports.
In the small community.
Yeah,
For them, it's like, okay.
yeah, I'm loud because I'm
I guess it's very interesting, I guess.
Yeah. So that's all you are in Portuguese.
Everything, like, we just
Portuguese.
I got a pretty,
yeah.
but most of it. I got a pretty, I got the fighting family, you know, the Portuguese, the Irish, the French, you know, I got the temper.
So was your mom Portuguese or?
My mother was Portuguese and Irish, and my father was French.
My mom was Portuguese.
No.
And my dad was Italian.
Read one of the books.
They married a Canadian.
Again,
I knew
at the
from
same
my-
time, I was.
Well, mine's Canadian.
Log
French.
Horner.
Mine's Canadian
And,
French.
I said that
Mine's
she's
Canadian. Nova Scotia.
Oh, yeah. I was very excited to meet her because one of my teachers told her about her. So,
I mean, I didn't even know
That's how I met
when I
Yeah.
read the book.
Yeah, somebody told me, they're like, what if you try meditating?
I didn't, you know, well, I just was like, this seems to, I agree with
My therapist
philosophy of it, because she doesn't, in that.
And I was like, oh, wow.
She's not
I actually started reading her
specifically about
books in 2000, 2003, but I came to it down, my first Dharma teaching
coming through the back door.
in 2005.
yeah.
That was with another. it's just been a involved.
Did you like that discussion?
Now it's gonna evolve even more.
Was it really what's the next step?
I
No, recognize it, verbalize these poor strangers, I wanna tell this intimate thing. And it's the first time, so you work with your ego.
That's my goal.
No, it was like when she talked about this, you wanna have like a small group. I said, I hate the working group. So then I sometimes
It's almost
so
maybe it's easier than talking to the person that you're having trouble with.
no,
It's too extreme.
but the
It's
first
like basically sitting at a bar when
It's when I
shares trouble with the bartender. Rather than with the person that you have a partner.
No, yeah, I know. And what time is it now? It's just for the first time. For the first time. No, and I said, this is my first time. This is my first time teaching.
Westerners aren't built to sit. Westerners aren't made like this because we haven't done it since we were trying to get to a point where our bodies change because we haven't done it. So that's why Westerners aren't actually made to sit.
And then a person that too.
I mean, I know I learned out there.
And I like your language.
Oh, thank you.
There's something. There's something in my yeah, you wouldn't recognize. Maybe it's like
Yeah, that's it.
Oh. I feel like you.
You already gonna do more English?
If you sat on the floor,
Let's go to lunch sometime. I'd love to talk about
You should help something, so give me everything.
Breathe again. And breathe. Okay.
So now the juicy topic, how much we don't like ourselves. Honestly, I found that one of the biggest problems, I think, for the Western people in practicing the Dharma is the lack of self-acceptance and self-forgiveness, and having a lot of self-blame, self-hatred, and low self-esteem. Yeah. And it's just remarkable how pervasive this kind of thing is, and how difficult it is for our Tibetan teachers to understand it. They have no clue, really, because it's not in their culture at all. Yeah. And I remember at one conference, I was out with His Holiness and Western scientists, and this topic came up, and His Holiness was so puzzled, and he said to all these very famous scientists, kind of, how come you don't like yourself? Or he said, who has low self-esteem? And they all look at each other and say, we all do. And His Holiness says, how come? You're successful. And it's really interesting because, we try so hard to be successful in societal terms, and yet we still don't feel good about ourselves, So it's like we're trying so hard to please our parents or please society or please somebody else outside according to those values, but that never makes us feel good about ourselves. Yeah? And so there's that element, and then there's this element of, so much self-blame, and I think that this also comes because of so much self-focus. Yesterday we were talking about the self-centered thought, and, perceiving everything through this little periscope of me, I, my, and mine. And when we do that, with so much attention on the self in an unhealthy way, then we wind up just being so critical. Yeah? And we also have a hard time detaching ourselves from the message we get from society, from our family, and this boils down to what we were just talking about, our inability to assess and evaluate things for ourselves with our own wisdom and to trust that. Yeah? And so because we're always looking outside for what do I have to do to get approval? What do I have to do to get love? You know, then we're always trying to be what we think other people think we should be. And we never feel like we're cutting the grade. And so then we say, well, you know, I'm just not good enough. That's it. I'm good enough, I'm not good enough, and that's why they don't love me. And all this focus on the self. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is also tied to the individualist culture that we have.
Definitely.
Not a community culture at all.
Definitely. Yeah, because we're all trying to be individuals, yeah, and unique, but in a conformative way. Isn't it? You have to be an individual and unique within a certain framework that people approve of. Yeah. So you still have to buy into societal values and everything. And yeah, I mean, this whole self-centeredness and individualistic culture, they are good buddies. Yeah. Yeah, and so this thing of, you know, you always have to be the best. Yeah. So of course, you know, as soon as we as an individual have to be the best. In Asian cultures, it's very much a group identity, and so you represent your group, and your group has to be safe and has to be prosperous and so on. But you as an individual don't stand out in the group. Yeah, and you can really see this. I saw, well, at one of the conferences with the scientists in His Holiness, there was one, I think she was Japanese, or she may have been Chinese, I forget. Anyway, she was saying that, you know, during her high school graduation, you know, the American kids, she grew up in America, but she had an Asian upbringing, you know, culturally, so much more of a group identity rather than an individual one. She said in her high school graduation, when the teachers and the principals were praising certain kids, those kids were standing up, looking out at the audience, beaming. Here I am, you know, look, they're praising me, I'm so good. And when she got praised, the way in Asian culture you do it is you look down, you know, and you don't put yourself forward as I'm the greatest one. You know, you're very humble in that way. And I mean, that's a huge difference, isn't it? Yeah. So when you're always trying to put yourself first, even, you know, forget the group you're a part of, you're trying to be the champion of the group, the first one in the group, there's a lot of stress and pressure, because how can you get the first place? And we always think whoever it is who gets the first place, who's ever, you know, the smartest, the best musician, the best artist, the best one who plays ping pong, you know, the best bonsai grower, the most attractive, the whatever it is. I mean, we compare ourselves in so many picayune ways to other people. We always think that the person who gets the first place is going to be so confident. Yeah. And that's not the case. The person who gets the first place is ridden with anxiety of how am I ever going to pull this off again? Yeah. it happened this once, but how am I going to be the best one again? You know, that's not going to go on. Yeah. So everybody loses. Because there's just one, then everybody else feels they aren't good enough. And that one also is anxious because they know they can't hold that up. Yeah. I mean, look at the last Olympics and all these people who had won previous Olympics, who everybody was sure they were going to just be raving, you know what I mean? They were supposed to win and look so good, and they didn't. Yeah, wasn't there, I mean, some guy on the half pipe who was supposed to come in first, he didn't, and one on the ski thing where they jump off, he didn't, and then the skating couple who didn't. You know? So, even for them, so much self-hatred, insecurity, because of this thing of comparing ourselves to others and competition, and inability to just say to ourselves, well, what is important to me? Society may say that looking a certain way is what's really going to make you, important. And I don't look that way. Yeah. Do I really accept society's value that you have to look that way in order to be lovable or important or talented or whatever it is? And then when you think about it, no, looking that way has nothing to do with who you are inside. Zero. Yeah. And so I reject that as a standard for how successful I am or how valuable I am as a human being. Yeah. For me, my standard is, maybe the ability to be kind. Yeah. Or the ability to live an ethical life. Or, you make your own standard about what you think is valuable. And then because it's not a standard that you have to live up to, but something that you admire and you want to work towards. Okay? So instead of, I set myself the standard and I keep jumping and I can't get up there, it's, I see this as a valuable direction to go in, and I'm slowly going in that direction, and however fast or slow I go is good enough. Because what matters is I'm going there. And what matters is I have a value that is really worthwhile in my world, according to what I see as valuable. Yeah. And that's all that matters. Whether other people approve or not, forget it. Don't take other people's standards and other people's values as your own. Because otherwise we go through our whole life trying to fulfill other people's expectations, doing, 10 gazillion backflips to please other people, and never feeling adequate. Whereas if we decide ourselves, and not like, making a ton of money is my value, something according to the Dharma about having a kind heart and, being a reliable, good human being, something of Dharma value, and then say, and I'm working towards that, and that is good enough, and I'm happy with that. Yeah? It doesn't matter that I don't do all these other things, and I can look at all these other people who are good in those areas and rejoice, and say, isn't that wonderful that they're good in those areas, even if I'm not? Yeah, I'm so glad there's people who are better than me. Yeah, we should all be glad there are people who are better than us. Because I know for myself, if I were the best one, we are in bad. Because we would not have electricity in this room, we would not have plumbing. Because I don't know anything about those things. We wouldn't have cars, we wouldn't have buildings. We wouldn't have food, because I don't know anything about how to make or grow those things. So I'm actually quite happy there are people who are better than me. Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's also very inspiring to have people who are better than me on the path, who know more, who can explain more, who can share. Very inspiring.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here.
Oh no. Now I can't make a mistake. She's going to criticize me.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Other comments? Questions? Yeah. What do you think? What's your question?
That's for me is the best answer because I used to struggle a lot with that. So I used to ask all the teachers about the same thing. Most of the teachers always says that don't punish yourself too hard. Keep stopping and thinking about you and feeling regret about the things that you do. But you know, I keep always doing the same mistake and the same mistake. And,
yeah. So what you have to do, you know, because we have a pattern of thinking that way, a pattern way of always criticizing ourselves, is to notice when you're doing that and just find it and say, oh, there's that bad habit again.
And it's very interesting because in one of the things that I do most is in the spiritual practice.
Oh.
So sometimes I feel lazy, I don't do practice, then I regret. So I keep that cycle.
Yeah, yeah. Then we make ourselves discouraged.
I'm not a good practitioner. What will my teacher think? If he knows what I'm doing, what I'm not doing.
Yes, I'm such a failure. You know, everybody else has Buddha nature, but not me. Yeah. So I might as well give up on the path because I just can't do it. It's too hard, the goal's too high, and I'm inadequate. Yeah? So what are you going to do if you give up on the path? What are you going to do? Go shopping all day? Yeah? But seriously, think, you know, when your mind says, this Dharma bit is just too hard, tell me what else you're going to do that's going to make you happy. Go to the bar and get drunk every night? Yeah? Take dough? Go shopping? Go bowling?
Watch movies.
Yeah, watch movies, read sci-fi novels.
Every time I've tried to throw my arms up in my practice and said, I can't do this is too hard, I end up somehow, it's like I try to give it up, but I can't. It's already part of me. So I end up moving. It's like, what, you know, it's like it won't let me give it up.
Yeah, yeah. It's like that, you know, and when you're in mind, because I remember one time I went through this thing, it's like, oh, my morning practice, I just run through the things, I'm not really meditating, and it's not having any effect, and it's useless. And then I thought, what would happen if I didn't do it? And the idea of getting up in the morning and immediately diving into the day without my practice, it was like, I can't do that. You know?
Yeah.
I can't do that. I would feel like a fish out of water. And then I realized that even though I thought my practice wasn't going anywhere, something is happening. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
You started to talk about how you get off of this self-criticism wheel.
Oh, yes. So, you know, when that thought starts to come, to just go, oh, look, there's that habit, my bad habit again. I'm pressing the off button. Yeah? I'm not going to feed that habit because I can identify it now as a mistaken thought. It's not a true thought. So anything that's a mistaken thought, there is no sense in letting that thought remain in my mind. Yeah, because when we put ourselves down and say, I can't do it, It's tantamount to saying that the Buddha doesn't know what in the world he's talking about when he says everybody has Buddha nature. Isn't it? Yeah, Buddha, you just don't understand. Everybody has Buddha nature but me. Yeah? Are you going to look the Buddha in the eye and say that?
No.
I don't think so. Yeah? So, okay, so then all these thoughts of putting myself down are completely erroneous. So I have to just stop them, stop feeding them. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about watering seeds in your mind. You stop watering that seed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And you go back to Lama Yeshe's thing, good enough, dear. That's what Lama always says, good enough, dear. And if you're doing some kind of practice like Chenrezig or, Tara or whatever, then you really focus. If you're doing the front generation, you focus on the light and nectar coming into you, and you really feel like you're purifying yourself and receiving all of the Buddha's good qualities. And if you do the self-generation, then you really think, yes, I can be Chenrezig or Tara or Mantra. Lama used to talk about poor quality view. That was his way of saying low self-esteem. And you have poor quality view. I am poor quality. I am defective goods. If they could return me at the store, they would. Yeah, that's not true. Each of us has our own internal beauty and our talents. And believing in that and seeing our good qualities. There's nothing wrong with seeing our good qualities. Seeing our good qualities is very different than being arrogant. Okay? Somebody who's arrogant actually doesn't believe in themselves. Yeah. But if we see our good qualities and we accept, yes, that's a part of me, and we see our problems, and yes, those faults are a part of me, then, we don't, again, this whole comparison thing, I don't have to put good, I don't have to put bad, I can just be what I am.
How do we prevent that from getting into like self-cherishing, where we actually hold up like our faults as if there's something really great?
Oh yeah. That's another form of self-centeredness. Because self-centeredness and pride, there's one part where it's the most important, putting ourselves up. The flip side is, I am the worst. So if I can't be the best, I am going to be the worst. Because somehow I am special. Nobody else is as bad as me. I can make everything go wrong. Yeah, the marriage broke up. It's all my fault, 120% of it. Yeah, I'm so powerful, I can make it all go wrong. Isn't that a bit egotistical? Yeah. I mean, things are dependent arising. There's always many causes and conditions going on. And actually, I think that the whole idea of fault is something incorrect, that we should just get rid of the notion of fault. Yeah. That they have no fault insurance. Yeah. Let's just have no fault and banish that word. Because the thing that's wrong with fault is we think, first of all of the responsibility goes to one person or one party. And second of all, it is inherently existent. Yeah? So if they are at fault, they are a bad person. So again, not separating the action from the person, which we have to separate. I made a mistake. I am not a mistake. Okay, there's a difference. Actions may be things that are inappropriate or harmful. It doesn't mean the person is evil. It doesn't mean the person is hopeless. Okay, so we have to really think about these things and make sure we have the correct view and go over them again and again in our minds, because otherwise, you hear it at the talk and you feel very good. Oh, yes, I made mistakes. I'm not a mistake. Then you go home, you make a mistake, and I'm so worthless. Yeah. So you have to really watch, and when these thoughts arise in your mind, catch them. And then go back and think, is that thought true? Is that a correct thought? Yeah. I made a mistake, therefore I'm worthless. Is that true?
Feels true.
Yeah. But is it true?
Intellectually it's not.
Yeah.
But you need to get it.
You need to get it from here into here. The way to get it from here into here is by thinking about it again and again and again, and really identifying that is a wrong conception. Yeah, that's like believing in rabbit's horns. Yeah, it's like worshiping a turtle's mustache. This is, this is a misconception. I mean, it's similar. Our grasping at true existence is the same way. It's an old, long-held habit that we have to keep on counteracting again and again. Yeah. So just because something feels true doesn't mean it is. Just because we think something doesn't mean it's true. That's why I called the book, Don't Believe Everything You Think. Because we think such whacked out things sometimes that are totally unrealistic. Yeah.
The other thing, feelings aren't always facts.
Pardon?
Feelings aren't always facts. To go from here to here, the feeling isn't always a fact. You could have a fake feeling, it's like you're not looking at reality in the true way.
Right.
Of what it needs to be.
Right. And a lot of the feelings are, the disturbing emotions are 100% based on wrong conception. Okay. It's like, for example, when we're angry, listen to this one, when we're angry, we are not perceiving reality. Forget ultimate reality, even conventional reality. We are not perceiving reality when we are enraged. Yeah. Now, when you're angry, do you say to yourself, oh, I'm not perceiving reality? No, I am perceiving reality. Reality is very simple. You're wrong and I'm right. And you change, and that's the end of it. Yeah. But is that reality?
No.
No. We're fabricating all sorts of stories and imputing them on other people. Oh, you meant to harm me, you had this bad motivation, you're trying to do this and this and this and this to me because you're jealous, because blah, 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 because you have in your childhood this and that happened, and now you're taking it all out on me, projecting all your childhood issues, and I think you're borderline. No, you're not borderline, you're bipolar. No, you're not bipolar, you have some other disorder. Because everybody has a disorder nowadays. Yeah, have you noticed? Everybody has a disorder. Nobody's normal. And we're the psychologists, and we psychodiagnose, we diagnose everybody. Everybody that we don't like, they're either bipolar or borderline. Or schizophrenic.
That's like when you're angry, it's like your vision just like narrows.
Yeah.
It's really that you know anything else that's going on around you when you're really angry.
Right.
You don't know what people are seeing when they're looking at you. All you're seeing is like that object that you're angry at, and you're totally oblivious to everything else.
Everything else, yeah. It's like tunnel vision. And the scientists say there's something called a refractory period, which means when you're in a high emotional state like that, you cannot take in any information that contradicts your perception. Yeah? So we're so enraged that we're making ourselves stupid. Because we can't take in any other information that is contradictory to what we're thinking at that moment. Everything else is wrong. Yeah. You're right. All we're focused on is that. And I'm either going to smash it or I'm getting out of there. So narrow.
Are there any practices or thoughts that you've come across that are beneficial for maybe just before that super angry, like refractory place, and where you can still soften or be open to receiving something?
Yeah. The best thing is to have a strong daily meditation practice and to do the meditations on developing patience and fortitude on a daily basis. Yeah. So His Holiness's book, Healing Anger, is very good. My book, Working with Anger, is totally plagiarized from Shantideva. Chapter 6 in Shantideva's work, he didn't take me to court. But I admit, the book's totally plagiarized. All his ideas, not mine. But if you take those different antidotes out and you meditate on them regularly in your practice, then you familiarize yourself with looking at the situation in a different way. Yeah. And if you do this in your practice, then it starts to happen in your daily life too. The way to do it in your practice is to take out situations from the past. Yeah. That maybe you've thought you've resolved or whatever, and you practice thinking the way Shantideva suggests. You imagine that situation you were in, and now you imagine yourself thinking as Shantideva is suggesting. And you practice thinking like that. Okay? Here I am. Yes, 10 years ago, my boss was screaming at me. Yeah? So I can imagine that situation, my boss screaming at me. Instead of going back into how we were feeling and getting stuck again and feeling incompetent or whatever, it's just, okay, I remember that situation, and now I'm going to think he's suffering. Instead of, going into, he's accusing me falsely, blah, 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 blah. I am not insufficient, like he says, because, we can't evaluate ourselves. I am just focusing on he is unhappy. And if there's an unhappy person, the way to respond to that person is with compassion. Because if my boss were happy, he or she would not be screaming at me. Nobody screams when they're unhappy, when they're happy. They scream when they're unhappy. Here's a suffering person. Can I wish that person to be free of suffering? That's all compassion means. Can I have compassion and wish them to be free of suffering? And you practice focusing on that. Yeah.
Are you saying that you can heal past wounds and trauma with that?
Yes. When you really work at it, you can. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Shantideva's work, very familiar with, worked on it the past 6 years now, on working on my triggers, and knowing when what used to trigger me doesn't trigger me so much anymore. Yay.
Yeah.
But then of course, you're in the same, let's say, family dynamic, same crowd it was really almost like a shameful criticism that comes. And, you know, I never know. I sort of always sit there and I kind of go, okay, don't get reactive. That's not going to be helpful. So I try to say something. Sometimes it works, and other times I don't say anything because that would be worse. So I get stuck in saying, am I suppressing my anger and internalizing it? And then I try to work on that later with Tonglen, and build that space between us. But I never see that person suffering. So inside my head, I just go, they're never suffering, I'm always suffering. And I get into that stupid space, right? So, but I catch myself, but how do you work with that when you're really in that space?
Okay, so you're saying that you're in that space, somebody's criticizing you or laying into you, and you've stopped being reactive to the extent of yelling and screaming back at them.
Yeah, and you know, I've looked back and I've noticed, I'm like, wow, that, you know, I'll look back after the fifth time and I don't say anything, and later on I'm reflective, and I say, wow, there was like 4 or 5 times where I kind of went up and I didn't even notice it. Pretty good there, you know. Yeah. But then I'm really working on that 5th time now, let's just call it the 5th time, where it's
you
just,
got hooked.
Yeah, I took the bait. Yeah. And I was like, that just hit me the wrong way. Yeah. And then I just shut down.
Yeah. Now then you have to go back and say, yeah, it was really good. I didn't bite the hook for the first 4 times. You know, I bit it the 5th time. That was a mistake. Yeah, I don't need to do that. And here's why I don't need to do it. Because what that person's saying is not true. And I know it's not true. So I don't need to defend myself. I don't need to, you know, kind of prove I'm right. I can just let them say that. And if it's an important relationship, go back to them later and say, you know, I think there was a misunderstanding, or you didn't have all the information, and here I just want to give you some information. Yeah. And forgive yourself. I mean, you did it well 4 times, pat yourself on the back. And then the 5th time, you know, you got hooked. Okay. So you figure out what happened. Yeah. What can I do next time when a similar situation happens next time? How can I strengthen my fortitude so that next time maybe I can go 5 times before, you know, that wears at me.
How do I begin to communicate that more effectively instead of shutting down?
Communicate it to who?
To the person.
To the other person?
Maybe because...
Then sometimes, you know, when it's a good opportunity with the other person, then you might say, okay, I feel whatever you feel, because I need whatever you need. And don't link it to the person. It's not, I feel hurt because I need you to put your arms around me. No, it's, I feel hurt because I need to be heard.
So maybe taking it offline and not in front of everyone?
Oh, yeah. If it's an individual thing with one person and you're in a group, better to take it offline, yeah.
That's usually the dynamic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, if somebody has a habit, let's say, of ridiculing you or shaming you in front of other people, yeah, and you don't, you know, you're able to just maintain and realize, okay, that they're not talking about me. Actually, they're making themselves look really bad. Yeah, don't you think? If you're in a social situation and one person starts shaming another person in front of them, who do you think badly of? The person person who's doing the shaming, not the person they're talking about. Yeah. You lose respect for the person who's doing that kind of behavior. Yeah. Okay, so, you just don't worry about it in the situation. And then if it's somebody that you're close to where the relationship matters, or if you think it's really helpful to the other person to let them know how you're feeling in that situation, then you go to them, and instead of saying, you did this, and you did this, and you did this, you simply say, in that situation, and you don't even say, when you said I was an idiot, or, just in that situation, when we were with so-and-so the other night, I felt angry, embarrassed, sad, whatever it was you felt, and I need respect. Yeah? And you're not demanding that they respect you. And you're not tying your need for respect to their behavior. It's not, I need you to respect me, because they're going to react to that. It's just, I need respect. And if that person is unable to give you the respect you need, then other people can certainly give you that respect. And you can give yourself respect. Yeah? You don't need, your need for respect does not depend on one human being's actions. Okay? Okay, let's sit quietly for 5 minutes. And, for 5 minutes, take out one of your favorite self-criticisms. And think about why it is a wrong conception. And think about, what you can replace it with. First of all, how can you notice it more quickly when you think like that? And what kind of thought can you replace it with when you push the stop button on that wrong conception? Okay, let's just do that for 5 minutes. Dedicate the merit. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Kurukulla, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May the born have no decline, but increase forevermore. So we'll continue tomorrow on remedy for disturbing attitudes.
Must look as though that. Let's say good night.